Good morning, LCC kids. Happy Sunday. We're in the last Sunday of March. Hey, don't forget, April Fool's is this week. So, final days now for planning whatever your April Fool's pranks are. But don't tell your parents that I told you that or gave you that idea. But we're going to jump into today's game of extreme Would You Rather. You ever played Would You Rather? You know, sometimes we'll do those questions around our dinner table in our family, and we want to know what would you rather, but even more important than that, today you have to figure out what would Miss Abby Lemoyne rather. She's here with me in studio running the video system for today's recording, and I've gotten from her what her answers would be to each of these questions. And so many of y'all know Abby, know her from LCC Kids and from Sunday mornings. What do you think she would rather for some of these? Let's look at our first one together. Would you rather get paid $1 million to have the word idiot tattooed on your forehead? Don't recommend calling people idiots, but you get the idea. Or be a movie star that makes no money at all. So you can think for yourself what you would rather, but more important, what would Abby rather between these two? What do you think? Is it one or two? You shout it out now. And she told me it was number two. She'd rather be a movie star that makes no money at all. And I think most of us would probably rather that than, I don't know, well, maybe you want the $1 million, be a walking idiot. All right. Would you rather have no elbows or have no knees? Now, not no legs and no arms, but just no joints that bend on your legs or your arms. So, what do you think Abby said about that one? No elbows or no knees? She told me she would rather have no knees because you can walk with straight legs, but you use your elbows for so many things with your arms, bending them around and all that. Maybe you agree, maybe you disagree. How'd you do on that one? All right, next one. Would you rather go to prison for a year or eat a dog? A little gruesome here, but what do you think? What do you think Miss Abby said about this? Would she rather go to prison for a year, lock her up, or eat a dog? Believe it or not, she would rather eat a dog, but she would hope that she didn't know it was a dog. All right, next one. Would you rather have fingers that shoot spaghetti or have feet that turn into skates? And I don't even think, these things can't even compare. Most people, including Abby, would rather have feet that could turn into skates. I mean, I guess if you're really hungry, having spaghetti shooting fingers, that would help with my middle son, Knox, who's always hungry. Maybe he could just shoot spaghetti right into his mouth. But, most of us would like to skate around. All right, next one. Would you rather live in a world without ice cream, or live in a world without bacon? And I know some people would say they would rather live in a world without ice cream if they could have the bacon. But Miss Abby and myself, and I think most sane people who want a happy life would rather take a world without bacon and keep their ice cream. Maybe that's true for you as well. Well, today we're going to talk about life in exile, and there was a bit of an extreme would you rather that some people in today's story had to face, and we'll find out about that in just a moment. But here's what happened. Right, we've been tracing. This has been like quite a Old Testament history lesson time together. We've been going through the story of Israel. Remember, they were split up into two kingdoms, and you had the Israel kingdom in the north, the 10 tribes. They're done for now, and then Judah's been hanging on for dear life in the south. But meanwhile, the Babylonian Empire has been growing, and this bad dude named Nebuchadnezzar is taking over the world. And The kings of Judah are trying to do what they can, sometimes to compromise with Nebuchadnezzar, work a deal. Sometimes they try to fight against him. But God says, you know what? My people have been wandering away from me, and the only way to get them back is to let them go, and then for them to cry out in need to come home. And so God's plan is actually to send them into exile because of their disobedience to him. And he uses Nebuchadnezzar to do that. So our first point is removal. There is a removal that takes place here where the people and all of their stuff get removed from the land. I mean, could you imagine somebody just shows up at your house unannounced and says, hey, get your stuff, whatever you can carry, and get yourself out of here, and you're leaving, and you're going to a foreign country where you don't know the language, and you don't know the people, and the food tastes weird, and you got to go now. Not really fun, huh? But the people get removed from the land. And not just that, the temple, God's temple, gets invaded and destroyed. And Nebuchadnezzar takes all the items from the temple, all the furniture that's in there, and he packs it all away, and he brings it with him back to Babylon. And he loads it up in this special storehouse where all his little treasures and idols and false god stuff was hanging out. He wants to act like, hey, we beat the God of Israel. He's now one of my collections. The Ark of the Covenant, it's right there. It's just with everything else that I've conquered. And now it's just one of many other religious options that people might have. All of these things, the people and all the things that made Israel unique in the world were removed. That's kind of shocking. Could you imagine experiencing that? Everything is suddenly different. And not only that, there's also a renaming that took place. And we're going to look at this because some of these guys, they were young. They weren't maybe as young as you, young kids, but they were like teenagers. And they were taken and they were given new names. In fact, you might know about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Or if you watch VeggieTales, Rack, Shack, and Benny. But, those weren't their names originally. Here they were. They had their friend Daniel, and his name meant God is my judge. But he's taken to Babylon, and the Babylonians said, nope, not your name anymore. We're going to give you a new name. How would you like if somebody that did that to you? Now your name is Belteshazzar. And Belteshazzar means wife of Bel, the Babylonian god, please protect the king. That's your name now? Right? They're trying to say, hey, all that you were, you belong to Yahweh, the God of Israel. You don't belong to him anymore. This is who you are now. And then Hananiah, his name meant the Lord shows grace. They named him Shadrach, which means I fear Aku, who is this moon god of the Babylonians, right? They're taking all the false gods and the idols and putting it in their names. And then Mishael, his name means who is like our God, but they gave him the name who is like Aku, again, Babylonian god. And then, that's what Meshach means, who is like Aku. Azariah means the Lord helps, but they gave him the name Abednego, which means servant of Nebo. Now listen, that's a bunch of kind of crazy sounding names. What are we to take away from this? You and I, we live in exile. Right? The Bible says that for God's people, this world isn't our ultimate home. But it does try to redefine who we are and to tell us that we serve things that are ultimately not of God and to make what's most important and to build our life on things that are false hopes and false promises. See that in this story, in the renaming of these young people. Now, they're going to be faced with quite a choice in just a moment. And we'll look at the decision that they made. But first, let's face some more choices with extreme would you rather, or would Abby Lemoyne rather. So, here we go. Would you rather have spider legs from the waist down, or have lobster claws from the elbows down? What do you think Miss Abby said about that? She said she'd rather have spider legs. She needs thumbs, needs to have working hands. You know, she's a guitar player, needs fingers, can't have claws. All right, number 2. Would you rather go to the moon as an adventure or take an all-expense-paid vacation anywhere on Earth? What would Abby Lemoyne rather do? All you people out there watching on YouTube, what do you think? Well, she said she'd rather take an all-expense-paid vacation anywhere on Earth. Going to the moon's pretty cool, but, you know, not a whole lot to do once you get there, so I can understand that. All right. Would you rather have a private jet but no cars, or have 10 cars of your choice? What would you rather? What would Abby rather? She would take the private jet but no cars. She said her mom could drive her around if she needed to get somewhere. But, I mean, you got a jet that could just take you around the world. Pretty awesome. All right. Would you rather have no eyebrows or have a unibrow? If you don't know what a unibrow is when there's a bunch of hair in between your eyebrows so that you don't have two, but you have just one long brow. That kind of looks funny, but having no eyebrows kind of looks creepy. And that's what Abby thought. She'd rather look funny than creepy, so she went with unibrow. Maybe you can talk with her about that next time you see her. All right, next one and final one. Would you rather have tarantulas, plural, that live in your house, or have clowns, plural, for neighbors? Do clowns make good neighbors? Do tarantulas make good roommates? What would you rather? Miss Abby said she would take the clowns outside her house versus the tarantulas inside her house. And I have to agree, you know. Clowns, are you scared of clowns? Some people think clowns are really creepy. You know, I get it and I don't get it at the same time. But, you know, this was a pretty scary moment for these young people in a new land, foreign place, new language, and weird food. And about that weird food, they were told, hey, I know you grew up all your life eating a certain diet that God told his people to eat, but now you're going to eat this. You're going to eat all this meat, and you're going to drink all this wine, and you're going to eat rich food, and guess what? You're going to love it here. You know, we are going to take care of you in Babylon. You're going to be one of us now. Some people might think, yeah, that's pretty cool, you know. Maybe I don't need to serve God if people give me some money and give me some really neat stuff and new toys and food that I've never tried before. But they decided to take the path of resistance, right? They were renamed, they were relocated, removed, but they resisted instead. They knew, no, we know who we really are. You can give us that name, but that's not who we are. We serve God. And in courage, and you'll see this theme a lot in the book of Daniel, which is where this is found, they decided, hey, we're going to stand for what's right. And Daniel said, look, I get it. You want to take care of us, give us all this food. We're going to eat vegetables instead. Could you imagine this? We're just going to eat vegetables, and we'll be fine. And the guy who was in charge of the workers was like, no. You're going to be weak. You're going to be scrawny. You're going to be tired. You need to get fed. And Daniel said, no, just watch and see. We're not going to do that. We're not going to eat your food. Sorry. Appreciate the offer, but we serve God and God alone. And you just watch what happens. And they ate a diet that they believed would honor God, would protect them from not being too polluted, associated with the place of Babylon. And God made them be stronger and healthier and wiser than all the other people around them. God blessed them and took care of them. And we'll see that again and again in this story, that there's going to be this attempt to put the pressure on, to get them to just be like everybody else and turn their back on God. God's going to bless them and take care of them. We'll find out more about that next Sunday. Don't forget about April Fools.